Hello. This week we will be talking about audience in our weekly lecture. This is your instructor, Dr. Rebecca Wood. Thinking about our audience, we mostly would start thinking about our primary audience. That would be whoever has made the assignment. Let's say your boss or your instructor, and they've given you a writing assignment. And so you would primarily be writing for them first. But also, you might be writing to include a larger group. For instance, if you were writing your company's annual report, the audience would include fellow staff members, customers, and investors, as well as possibly even auditors if they were to audit your company and they've read your company's annual report. So you want to be accurate and careful. And the audience for a class paper often might include your classmates, so you want to make sure that you're not telling anyone anything too personal in your papers. And then thinking about the audience, there's also a possible secondary audience. Your work could be forwarded on to others without your knowledge. And this secondary audience at this point in the way communications go so quickly around the world could include literally anyone. So always proofread for tone and accuracy before sending emails or other electronic communications. Keep in mind that your emails could be forwarded to anyone anywhere. So watch out for including confidential or company information that should not get out into the world. For example, when you are writing your company's annual report, it could be read by anyone, including your company's competitors, so you wouldn't want to blab any company secrets or give away any plans for expansion that could affect the business. Also, thinking about audience, here we are in school, so we have an academic audience. One thing that it's important to have in a good paper for school, and also this principle works for other types of writing, is there should be a strong thesis statement telling your audience what the paper or document is about. Do not make them guess. That is not their job. They need to read what you've written, and it should be clear for them so that they can easily understand what you're talking about. And then we want to use academic formatting, which usually includes a standard font such as Times New Roman or Arial in a standard font size, usually 12 points. So you don't want to use like really big type. That indicates you don't have anything to say and you're trying to pad the essay. But we also don't want to use little tiny fonts because then we have to write too much to fill up the pages and it's very hard to read. And I know nowadays we've got everything electronically and someone could just make the font bigger, but we don't want to do that to them. So we want to use a standard size font. We also want a descriptive title in our work. We want the title not to say paper 1, but to say the story of my life or something like that, so that your audience knows what your paper is about before they start reading it, or at least they have a hint. We want to give the audience an introduction that lets them know what the paper is about. And then we want our conclusion to wrap up all the main points and agrees with the thesis statement. So we shouldn't start up anything new in the conclusion, and we shouldn't leave out anything that we promised in the introduction. And then we also have body paragraphs that lead the reader logically through the paper from the introduction to the conclusion. So they should be able to see how they got from point A to point B by the time they're done reading your paper. Also, an academic audience would like to have facts that back up your thesis statement. What do you have to prove that you're right? Careful documentation of any material that was discovered during the research process. You can't just lift stuff in there off of anywhere and just put it in your paper. You can't quote half of a company's website and put it on in your paper and act like you wrote it. You just can't do that. It's not good. And plus, if you were caught doing that, it would be literally plagiarism. Also, the academic audience wants interesting details that make the paper come alive. And then each element of the assignment should be included. So if your instructor asks for a cover page or a references list, those should be added to the main paper. And the paper should be revised for organization of ideas and proofread for mechanical errors. So before you turn in your paper, it should be in the best shape possible. Now, since it is important to get your papers turned in on time, sometimes you have to turn in a paper that's not exactly the way you want it. There might be some stuff that's still not right with it, but it's still better to turn it in on time than to miss points, or worse yet, to miss out on all the points for an assignment because it was not turned in at all. And then some other things that your academic audience wants is that you should make sure you understand the assignment before investing a great deal of time on the assignment. If you read the assignment and you say, well, I don't know what they want, please contact your instructor. You can also contact the SLU Writing Services, and I do have a link here that you should be able to access from the PowerPoint file that's also in our Blackboard class. And then what does your audience want if they are a workplace audience? First, you should identify the scope of your writing process. Project? Are you writing a really long, involved document, or are you just writing a memo to let your coworkers know that you're going to be taking an early lunch? So identify the scope. How much work will you need to put into it? How much time do you have to write the document? Are you writing for a coworker or coworkers, a supervisor, or for the entire company? Your tone is going to be more formal if you're writing for the entire company or for a supervisor. And so if you are writing for a coworker, you should still be courteous and professional. You don't want to joke around too much in your work emails, especially since your work emails could be forwarded to anyone. So being smart alecky in your work emails is not a good idea, but you can possibly be a little more informal than you would be writing to everyone or to the big boss. Keep in mind that workplace communications are likely to be saved or forwarded on to others. Do not descend into casual mode in your written communications at work. And I hate to even mention it, but there have been people who have forwarded inappropriate materials at work, and there have been instances where people have lost their jobs for forwarding inappropriate jokes and emails, so please don't ever do that. What does your audience want? A workplace audience? Do not forget to use the writing process at work as well as in an academic setting. Is there already a designated format? My company has formats for things like work agendas or meeting agendas. So you want to make sure that you're using the correct format, just like you would for a school audience. For example, as I said, your company may already have a standardized agenda or annual report format. Also, this is one thing that's very important, not just for your school work, but for your work at the workplace, and that is to find an editing or proofreading partner. I have always done my work and then had someone who can look at it and say, oh my gosh, you've got the introduction in here twice. And so it's very helpful to have an editing partner that can read your work when it's close to being done or even in an earlier stage, so that they can give you some feedback and prevent any embarrassing mistakes. And so in the workplace, any typos or confusing passages could actually cost your company money and or customers. I know that there are some marketing materials that I've seen that had a lot of typos, and I thought, why wouldn't possibly go to that company for any kind of products, because they don't proofread their marketing materials well, so how can I trust that their products are any good? And so when we're thinking about all those things, we also want to customize for the audience. So if you are writing for an academic audience or another group of readers, it can be helpful to imagine them reading your work. Have you made your primary message clear? Can they understand what your point is? Do not try to be mysterious or surprise your reader unless you're literally writing a mystery novel. I remember once I was trying to put a surprise ending on a school paper, and my professor asked me to never do that again. And so this is another caution. Since anything we write these days can make its way to the rest of the world literally within hours or less, if you write anything that criticizes your workplace, customers, or your friends and family, you could possibly lose your job or start a family feud. And so you want to be careful what you post out there, because even if you delete it, it may not really ever be gone. However, all of this connection with the world could also lead to creative possibilities. Everyone in the world can now be our audience. We don't have to worry about waiting for something to go to press and be distributed and people to buy it. We can just throw it out there, our thoughts, our cat videos, whatever. And so we could publish our books and sell them independently on Amazon, maybe just one copy. But anyway, there are lots of opportunities now for writers, and so it's not all scary. Just think about who your audience is and how you can be appropriate and yet interesting and document your material carefully. Thank you. I hope you all have a wonderful week.